Hey guys, it is Tights Tech back in the video, and today I want to show and compare and talk about the Google Pixel 11 Pro versus my old Google Pixel 7a and the differences and maybe not so differences between the two. Let's get into it. I want to start off first talking about cameras because I feel like that's a pretty big talking point, and I wanted to get into that immediately. So I've taken a lot of cameras, taken a lot of pictures, and even some video between the two. And I want to talk about those. So first off, we have just a default picture of a room. I mean, I'll do my best to edit this so you can see what I'm talking about. But you might notice there's not a whole lot different between them. I mean, honestly, even just at first glance, they look pretty similar. I mean, the Pixel 11 Pro is going to be brighter for sure. But when you start zooming in, like, there's really not all that much difference. I mean, you zoom into the couch and maybe there's more texture on the Pixel 11 Pro. And if you look up at the covering over the curtains is a lot more detailed on the Pixel 11 Pro and a lot brighter. So there are things, we have to kind of like pick a peek. You have to like zoom in to be able to see those kinds of things. But at first glance, they're both passable photos, you know? But then, here's the next one. Zooming into a book on the couch, you zoom in and golly, there is infinitely more detail on the Pixel 11 Pro. And that's because this is at 5 times where the Pixel 11 Pro gets to take advantage of its telephoto lens. Where it gets to switch to a whole new lens and start from scratch essentially, instead of having to keep digital zooming in like the Pixel 7a is doing. So that's its first advantage, and this is going to become I'm going to say this multiple times because this is going to become a pretty big point. Moving on, we'll get to these flowers. I mean, similar story, they both look passable, but the Pixel 11 Pro is a lot brighter, a lot more vibrant, a lot more, it just has more life to it. The blur is also significantly more because the sensor is significantly larger. You can tell even by the circled bokeh in the background how the circles are much bigger on the Pixel 11 Pro, indicating a larger lens. And then we can, more flowers. I mean, again, even zooming in, like there really isn't a whole lot of detail difference between them as far as like graininess or whatever. I mean, the Pixel 11 Pro is a little bit sharper, but that could be focus and such. But it just has more life to it, the colors and everything. Which seems dumb, but like it is a valid point. It's kind of interesting because looking at the cameras, the Pixel 7a actually has more pixels. 64 megapixels and I believe 50 megapixels on the Pixel 11 Pro. But the Pixel 11 Pro sensor is much bigger, so it lets in more light. It's kind of, you gotta pick between those two, and so the pictures that come out of this, I have this set to 12 megapixel mode, and this is on 16 megapixels. You can switch to 50 megapixels on the Pixel 11 Pro, but it has diminishing returns. It's really not that big of a difference, and honestly, for most things, you want it to be able to bend down to 12 megapixels so that you can get more detail and less grain because it can do that smarter. Also, looking at a picture of my cat, I mean, they're both pretty similar, and again, more brightness and better colors, more life in the Pixel 11 Pro photo. And I'm not just LARPing here, like this is genuinely, it is no noticeable difference. I mean, most people probably wouldn't care, but having them side by side, the fur looks less grainy and more smooth how it is in real life. There's just more life to the photo. Moving on to the flower, again, there's just more color, more vibrancy, and the Pixel 7a just kind of looks more dull, and that's not just the displays looking at them side by side, it's the actual color science of the processing that goes on. And here's a more interesting one. Zooming in from, I believe this is 8 times, which is the max of the Pixel 7a, to a car, it's just like night and day. Again, with the slight zoom, look at the headlights on that. Look at that. It's so unbelievably different. This isn't even 5 times, this is 8 times. So the Pixel 11 Pro is still doing some digital zoom there, and it looks that crisp. It's amazing. And from what I've noticed, so many times I'm using this Pixel 7a in the past, in times where I really did want to zoom in a little bit because I didn't have the luxury of being able to position myself in the perfect spot to get the perfect photo like I can when I'm taking pictures of flowers, like in my sister's wedding or whatever. The Pixel 7a zooming in past 2 times, like it's virtually unusable. Like the pictures you get out of that are just not, they're filled with grain, tons of noise. Faces specifically, you literally can't make out. You can make out maybe that's supposed to be a human, but like past that, it's anyone's best guess. So having the zoom lens on this makes it so good. I think that's one of the weakest points of the 7a is it's an incomplete camera system. It's got the ultra wide, it's got the main lens, but it's missing the telephoto that really takes the camera to a next level and makes it a more complete system. Moving on to just a default sky picture here, we've got, again, more vibrancy, more brightness, and even that it adds to more detail in the leaves and distinction between the two. In the Pixel 11 Pro, it's actually a better picture, in my opinion, for the first time in a little bit here. And then another crazy difference, zooming in a whole lot into a squirrel that I saw in the grass. On the Pixel 11 Pro, we've got, sure, it's blurry and grainy, but you can tell that is a squirrel. On the Pixel 7a, that is, what even is that? You can barely make out the ears, barely some eyes. I mean, you could probably still tell, oh, that's a squirrel. But the Pixel 11 Pro is a much more usable image. It's still not something I'd be proud of, but it's a lot more usable. But then the Pixel 11 Pro has a little trick up its sleeve. That's where the Tensor G6 and all its AI nonsense come into play. Because what it can do is it can regenerate that with AI and give you this. Which, sure, it's fake, but it's still a night and day difference, considering this is like, I think this was 140 times zoom. Sorry, 120. It has that little AI, somewhat fake look to it, but it's still such a better picture, which is helped so much by it having a good baseline to start with to generate off of. The Pixel 7a would probably generate a bunch of hallucinated nonsense if I tried to do pro zoom on that. So yeah, that's a big difference between the two. Is the Pixel 11 Pro has an ability to zoom in and then regenerate it with AI. And I still have mixed feelings about this. I can't decide if I like it or not. Like I really don't want to hate it too much, but it is kind of like, it's still AI, like it's still fake, you know? So I guess that's up to you to decide if that's a deal breaker for you. Next, we have another thing that the Pixel 7a does not have, and that is macro focus. Here we've got a picture of this leaf, and this is as close on the Pixel 7a as the leaf would stay in focus with the main lens, and this is as close as I could focus with the macro mode on the Pixel 11 Pro. And I mean, once you zoom in, they're pretty similar looking images, but the focus helps a whole lot. Pixel 11 Pro, there's way more details in the veins and stuff. I'm sure I could have taken a better picture and found a better subject or whatever, but I mean, you can still see this has the option. This just doesn't have the option, you know? Moving on to video, I'll play this for you guys.
All right, camera test has started. This is video. Not really sure. Let's zoom in. Zoom back out. Yeah, I mean, overall, I don't know. I'll have to pixel peep for this, but I mean, just looking through the viewfinder, the Pixel 11 Pro is looking so much sharper, even though these are both technically 1080p. So we could go look at these flowers. Neither of these have any fancy stabilization turned on. We can look at the flowers. We can look at the flowers. All that fun stuff. Pixel 11 Pro is getting a lot more natural blur because of that significantly larger sensor. I like that for close-up photography. Clouds. All right.
Rewatching that, I noticed in the grass specifically, there's just way more detail on the Pixel 11 Pro. They're both 1080p, 30 FPS, but the brightness, the vibrancy that is more true to life was just mind-blowing on the Pixel 11 Pro. No, don't get me wrong, neither of them are bad, neither of them is like night and day difference, but when you start to pixel peep, you can actually see real differences between the two, which I sure hope. Next is low light mode. This was, to my eye, I could make out what I was looking at, but it was very dark and stuff, so both of these did their little magic to try to brighten it up. And first glance, Pixel 11 Pro is brighter, so that's a good thing. And you zoom in a little bit, and you see a lot more texture on the Pixel 11 Pro. There's a lot more clarity in the detail on top of the little case, the corner specifically, but like you realize there's just like a whole lot of blur and out of focus in the Pixel 7a, and it's like, what's up with that? Well, it's because Pixel 7a took like over 6 seconds to take that photo. This took it in 2 seconds. And so it's a lot less time for your fingers to shift, your hands to micro stutters, whatever, that throw blur into the mix. The Pixel 11 Pro can take the picture a lot faster and end up with a better looking picture because of it, while still being brighter, which is kind of impressive. Moving on to the selfie camera, the Pixel 7a has a much wider lens, But if you're trying to get group photos, it's actually a lot better for that. Pixel 11 Pro still looks good. They're both honestly extremely similar. There's not a whole lot of difference between these. I think my hair has a little bit more detail on the Pixel 11 Pro, and I like that. More highlights, more. It looks good. I think the Pixel 11 Pro does have a better image. Either you can actually see the color of my eyes, where in the Pixel 7a it just looks black. But still, very comparable. Yeah. And then here's another thing with where a zoom lens is useful. Taking this little picture of the little 3D printed thing on my desk. The Pixel 7a came out with a grainy mess that, I mean, you can kind of see what it is, but it's like not great. Especially when you put it into the Pixel 11 Pro, where again, it's just mind-blowingly different. You can actually see the little details in the filament. You can see the layers, all that kinds of stuff. Where the Pixel 7a was kind of just blurring all that together into one thing. And then one last thing with the portrait mode, I didn't have a good subject for this. I didn't want to, I don't know. I didn't have a good subject for this, so I chose my phone, which I'm filming this with. And it looks dumb, but there's more blur on the Pixel 11 Pro. It's a lot brighter. Again, wow, I've said this like 1,000 times in this video. And then you zoom in, and honestly, surprisingly to me, I don't know for sure about this, but the 11 Pro has a lot more detail, like actually genuinely more detail. Zooming into, I believe, the main lens here on the iPhone 15, that this was the subject of this, you can see in the reflection of the lens there's a lot more detail on the Pixel 11 Pro. Not sure why that is. I think they're both using the main lens as far as I know, but I've noticed that like when I take pictures of my nieces and nephews, the portrait mode looks so much better on this, and I couldn't quite pinpoint what it is. When you zoom in, there is a lot more detail in the portrait mode on this. So portrait mode is a big deal for me because it really, especially like if you're taking a picture of somebody, it can make a big difference. And sure, the blur is somewhat fake, but it's still very nice to have, you know, in the first place. But overall for camera, I'm gonna have to give it to the Pixel 11 Pro. Obviously, shocker. 7a is what, 3 or 4 years old by now. Shouldn't be a huge surprise to anybody. But also, I was kind of surprised by the lack of difference when you're at 1x. So when you're using the 1x main lens for well-lit scenarios and stuff, really not that much of a difference, and kind of surprising to me. But what I've noticed is in real-world use, the 1x lens is just rarely enough to actually get what I'm trying to point out. Like the other day, I was taking pictures of ducks as I was walking home. There were some ducks in the pond. I can't get up close to the 1x lens and be like, all right, let me get up close and take the good picture, and it looks awesome. Like, sure, they would have had similar pictures there, but I didn't have the freedom to go over and get up that close, so I had to zoom in a little bit, probably 10, 12 times, and the duck was still crystal clear because the Pixel 11 Pro has that telephoto lens, has the complete system there, and allows me to have a lot more versatility with what I'm trying to shoot. And I don't have to worry so much about my positioning and where I am or everything. I can leave it up to the phone to have the ability to let me take better photos. Huge, huge benefit. Like, is it worth it? The Pixel 11 Pro cost me literally 10 times what the Pixel 7a cost me. It was $130 used on eBay. Pixel 11 Pro was $1,300. Is that worth it? No, I don't think it is. If you're looking for just camera, I do not think paying that kind of money for the Pixel 11 Pro as only a camera phone is worth it. I don't think there's better phones out there. I think the Pixel 11 Pro is top notch for main lens, but I'm just saying, surprisingly, I mean, Pixels have always been known for camera photography and their capabilities therein. So it's no surprise that even phones from years ago can still hold up today. But when you're using that 1x lens, there's barely a difference. It's just the fact that you also have zoom, better ultra wide, a little bit better, not much better, better portraits, all that stuff, macro photography. You have more, you have action pan and the long exposure and all that stuff. There's just more options available on the Pixel 11 Pro, and that is genuinely good. Like, it may sound like gimmicks or whatever, but it is actually useful to me. I can't really recommend it, you know? You're gonna have to really decide for yourself if it's worth it to you. Hopefully this video can add some clarity to it and throw some, oh yeah, this is a good upgrade, I'll buy it, or nah, that's not a big enough upgrade, I'll keep waiting and stick with my iPhone 11 or whatever. And that's great, that's fine. Longevity of tech, keep it going, keep it going, that's awesome. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, subscribe, tell me what you thought in the comments below if you have any other things you want me to test with Pixel 11 Pro, the Pixel 7a, or whatever else. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.